In this video, I'm going to show you 4 tips for keeping you and your bandmates' ego in check. This video is brought to you by the Tao of Guitar, where you learn how to play, not just what to play. Hi, I'm Dunnett, and if you're new to my channel, I share all kinds of tips and tricks for anything musically related, and especially the guitar, whether it's a music business, songwriting, recording, or playing the guitar. So if those are your passions, please subscribe, hit that little bell down there so you get notifications of when I upload a new video. So in this video, I'm going to show you 4 tips for keeping egos in check. Now, why is that important? Because egos, a lot of times, are one of the biggest killers of bands. I've seen that happen so many times, where one guy in the band, his head just starts to inflate, gets a big head, and all of a sudden he thinks he's better than the others or doesn't need them, and then he quits. And unfortunately, the band had a good thing going at that time, and everything just kind of falls apart. So obviously, we're all musicians and creators, and to be on stage, you have to have a certain amount of ego because you got to be up there because you want to be up there. But if your ego is way out of control, nobody wants to work with you. You kind of come across like an asshole, and no one really wants to work with an asshole. So it is kind of important to keep your ego in check a little bit. Nothing wrong with patting yourself on the back and taking pride in your accomplishments. You should do that. So it gives you motivation to continue along this path in this wacky business world of music. But you want to make sure, again, that that ego stays kind of in check. So I'm going to give you 4 little tips for doing that. First one is, if you don't live or play in a big city or big music town, I highly recommend doing that. Now, I currently live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is Music City, but I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio originally, and decent city, but not, a music mecca like Nashville, LA, or New York, or Chicago or Atlanta. So if you don't live or currently play in one of those towns, definitely recommend doing it, because you're going to find any of those towns, there's going to be an incredibly high standard of talent and professionalism. Now, granted, there's talented musicians in every town. Cincinnati especially has an abundance of very talented musicians. But a lot of times when we get out of our little comfort zone of being in our little big fish in a small pond, and we go see what else is out there, it kind of helps to make us go, wow, okay, yeah, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of things I need to be aware of. So definitely recommend, if you can't go gig in a big music city, at least go visit one, go check out, some live music, look at the level of not just talent, but professionalism too. That will help to kind of, let you know that, hey, might be that big fish in a small pond, but there's a lot of other big fish out there. Tip number 2, set your standards higher. Something I found like a lot of local bands tend to do, and by local I mean, bands just kind of starting out, have not achieved, an enormous amount of success. But a lot of times they kind of set their standards pretty low. They kind of compare themselves to their peers, their other bands, down the street, practicing in the garage 2 doors down or whatever. Instead of really setting their standards and looking at people like, okay, who's on the charts? Who's doing what I want to do? Whether they're, in the Billboard Top 100 or whether they're touring stadiums, whatever. Setting your standards higher like that, because that's going to make you work that much harder and realize how much work really is involved. And when you just kind of compare yourself to other people, sometimes it's much easier to become better than them, and all of a sudden your ego again will start to kind of inflate, because you're like, oh, we're better than that garage band down the road. But maybe that garage band down the road is not very good to begin with. It's kind of like saying the cleanest dirty shirt. So you want to kind of really set your standards and try to compare yourself and reach for things that you want to achieve by looking at those who have already achieved them. So look at, people who are, again, where you want to be, and set your standards up to theirs as much as you possibly can. Now, granted, sometimes you have limitations, but you want to at least kind of strive for that. And that's another thing that will help to kind of keep your ego in check a little bit. Number 3, a big thing I always recommend, is doing some sort of activity outside of music. Sometimes we, as musicians, we're so focused on music and everything is about music, and I get that, and music's always been my life and my #1 priority. But I also do things outside of music, and especially learning something new. If you're learning a new activity, learn a new language, learn yoga, or some sort of other activity, all of a sudden now, instead of being the expert, you become the student again, and you start to go, wow, okay, yeah, I don't really know as much as I did. It also kind of gives you a fresh perspective on things. But because of that, you're learning some new activity or doing something outside of music, you start to realize, okay, yeah, there are things outside of this. Yes, I might be excellent on my instrument, or I might be a great singer, or a great performer and everyone wants my autograph or whatever. But then when you're not in that world, are you still all that? Well, maybe not, maybe not so much. Now all of a sudden puts things a little bit more into perspective that, hey, yes, music is my passion, my number one thing, but there's more to it. There's more to life than just that. So that will really, really help to keep your ego in check. And finally, number 4, do some charity work. That's a great thing. It really helps to keep things in perspective. You start to see how often, a lot of times, we take things for granted, what we have that others don't. Whether it's helping people in need, whether it's working in an animal shelter or something, it really kind of helps to keep you human. A lot of people with big egos think that they're just better than everyone else, and like the saying goes, at the end of the day, we all end up 6 feet under. So it kind of really helps to keep things in that perspective. And not to end this video in kind of a downer note, but that is pretty much true, that we all want to be the best we can at everything while we're here. Want to leave things behind, but at the end of the day, we all end up the same. So keep in mind that we're all human, and so is everyone else. There's really no reason to have inflated ego that makes you think that you're better than anyone else, even if you might be a better player than such and such. Well, they might be a better singer. They might be a better songwriter. A lot of times people ask me that. I get this question from students all the time. Who's the best guitar player? Well, Eric Clapton can't do what Eddie Van Halen can do, and Eddie Van Halen can't do what Eric Clapton does. So, I mean, they're different. So, there's no real reason to have an overinflated ego. And again, that will destroy bands so quickly. I've seen it happen so many times where, again, a local band, they get a write-up in a local magazine, and the whoever writes the review raves on the singer or something like that. All of a sudden the singer thinks they're greater than everyone else, and they want things this way, and they start acting like a little baby about it or something. Or it could be the drummer or whatever. I'm not trying to diss on singers, but I've just seen it happen all over the board. So again, hopefully there's some things that kind of help you out. A lot of them also kind of give you, fresh perspective on music, like doing activities outside of music and, doing some charity or volunteer work. So again, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, ring that little bell down there so you get notifications. If you want to check out some of my music, put my name in Spotify, iTunes, or Amazon. I'm all over there. And if you're wanting some guitar lessons, check out my site, thetaoofguitar.com, where you learn how to play, not just what to play.